It's time for Recipe of the Day. I've gone down quite the rabbit hole to end up at today's custard recipe. What happened was months ago, I saw an article saying that there was a cafe in Paris that makes their hot chocolate with a custard. So it's like milk, real chocolate, and custard mixed in there. But then I couldn't actually find a recipe for that anywhere. So I looked and then decided I had to do it myself, which then meant that I had to come up with a delicious custard recipe to use in that hot chocolate first. I'll be telling you about that French custard hot chocolate in a couple of weeks. First, today is all about that custard. So what is custard? It is a basic sauce, and it's quite like saucy thin-like when it's warm, but it sets up kind of like a pudding when it's cold. You've probably had it before. It's also called pastry cream, and in French, crème pâtissière. And where you've probably had it before is inside of an éclair or a cream puff. It's sometimes inside of donuts. It is a wonderful topping for desserts. When it's warm and saucy, I really love it on chocolate cake. When it's cold, I love it mixed with berries. So good. Now, this is a really easy recipe for custard. A lot of recipes have you do it in a double boiler because there's some egg yolk in there. And like with hollandaise sauce, you're like stirring over that double boiler so that the egg doesn't scramble. But I have found that you can just do this in a saucepan on the stove. We'll strain it at the end just in case there are any little scrambled egg bits in there, but it works out perfectly. So really easy and uses ingredients that you probably have already. So just a wonderful thing to know how to make for when you want that sweet treat, need a little extra topping for some dessert or berries. It's just super great to know how to do. So for this recipe, it actually calls for a vanilla bean, but you could use vanilla bean paste, which is sold in a jar at some grocery stores, or vanilla extract. So it's going to be 1 vanilla bean or 2 teaspoons of vanilla bean paste or 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then I will also just say that vanilla beans, when they are nice and soft and plump, what you usually see people do is slice them in half lengthwise all along and then use a knife to scrape the seeds out and then use those seeds. But really, the vanilla beans that I tend to get at my grocery stores are a little harder, and it's not always possible to do that. So what I usually end up doing is slicing it lengthwise, like I said, but then just putting those two halves into the mixture as it's simmering, and then those little seeds just kind of come out into the mixture from there. So that is what you do if your vanilla bean is not very soft. The other thing I will say is that the recipe calls for whole milk and heavy whipping cream, but you can use all whole milk or all heavy whipping cream. It's going to be richer if you do all whipping cream, slightly less rich if you do all whole milk. You can also use a less fat milk, fat-free milk, 2% milk. It's just going to have like a weaker flavor, but it's still tasty. And then you can also use evaporated milk, the fat-free version or the full-fat version. Any of those are going to work. Okay, so how do you make this? You get out a medium saucepan and you whisk together a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and a couple pinches of salt. Then whisk in 3 egg yolks until nice and smooth. Then you stir in a cup of whole milk and half a cup of the heavy whipping cream. Then you're going to cut your vanilla bean in half lengthwise, like I said, and just add it in there if you can't scrape the seeds out from it. If you can scrape the seeds out, scrape them in and then put those bean halves in there too, because there's lots of flavor in the shell. And like I said, if you don't have a vanilla bean, you can use 2 teaspoons of vanilla bean paste or 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Add those in right now also. Okay, so now everything is in the pot. There are no other ingredients. I told you you probably have all that sugar, cornstarch, salt, egg yolks, and then the whole milk and heavy whipping cream. You might not always have those, but you can use other kinds of milk, and you probably have vanilla extract always also. So that's everything. And then you're just going to put that over medium heat, and you're going to whisk it constantly until it starts to bubble and thicken. It's going to take about 4 or 5 minutes. As soon as it starts to bubble at the edges, like you're not even bringing it up to a boil, take it off the heat, but keep stirring it constantly for a minute. And it's okay if it looks like there's a little bit of scrambling going on in there. Just keep stirring. Then put a fine mesh sieve over a medium-sized bowl and pour the custard through the sieve. and that's all. You can serve that warm, or you can chill it and serve it cold. It's going to set up a little bit more when it's cold. If you're going to pipe it into something like an eclair, you want it cold first. And that's it. So like I said, I will be telling you how to make the hot chocolate that uses this in a couple of weeks. Until then, get going with this custard. Put it on everything. It is so good. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is December 10th of 2024. You can also get the link in our Facebook group. I post the recipe of the day link every single day in that group. So you can always find what I'm talking about and get a great idea for something that you can make that day or in the days coming up ahead. The Facebook group is at facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. I can't wait to see you there. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.